Good morning and welcome to today's webinar. It's on Hire by Design, Improve People Experience with Empathy. My name's Jody Brandstetter and I'm the Chief Talent Strategist for Lean Effective Talent Strategies, LETS for short. We have two divisions. One is our Hiring Blueprint, which is a boutique consulting firm that specializes in creating strong talent acquisition strategies, processes, and experience with using the design thinking methodology. And the other is Talent Acquisition Evolution, which is a community for talent acquisition and recruiting professionals to connect, learn, and work together. In September, I launched my first book, Hire by Design, a hiring blueprint with design thinking. And it is focused on providing you with a really nice overview of what is design thinking, and then how can you use that in your day-to-day recruiting talent acquisition world, from creating stronger talent acquisition strategies, to recruitment marketing, to retention of top performers. It is a short read, just a little over 100 pages, and there's templates that you can use so that you can actually implement and use what you're reading immediately. And I'm really excited to announce that on launch day, which is September 18th, I was able to hit bestseller in 6 of the Amazon categories. All right, so one of the pieces of design thinking is empathy and a person's experience. And so that's what we're going to be discussing today. So let's start. The first question you may have is, what is design thinking? Design thinking focuses on using human-centered approach to generate innovative ideas and solutions. You start with a question or a challenge, and the process of design thinking focuses on what the person desires, while at the same time making sure that the solution is viable and within given limits. In essence, design thinking requires you to view the problem through 3 lenses: desirability, which is the human focus side, and then feasibility and viability, which is more on the business side. In design thinking, following the 3 lenses will ensure the solution meets the criteria for success for the user and the business. Most people think design thinking is for product development and not other areas of the business. Totally not true. Design thinking can help create out-of-the-box solutions for all areas of the business, including talent acquisition. When looking at the future of hire, there are some uncertainties. While there be, will we be virtual forever? My husband just said that his company is staying work from home until the end of February of next year. So when will they get back to the office? Will we be interviewing candidates virtually, in person? What will onboarding look like moving forward during this pandemic? So there's a lot of uncertainties just in how we're going to be doing business, but then also there's uncertainties of what roles are actually going to be used in the future, and which ones are going to help a business be successful. All these questions, there's challenges that need solutions that we may have never solved in the past and need innovative ways to solve today. And that's exactly what design thinking does. When using design thinking, you're focused on the user, or as we like to call it, candidate, or the employee, as well as the business. With design thinking, there are several different ways to go through the process. When I was getting certified with design thinking, I went through IDOU, which is an online design thinking school. And so I follow their process when I'm working with my clients. With design thinking, the first thing you need to know is, what's your challenge? That's usually what we call the how might we question. You want to learn about your audience through observing and interviewing. From there, you're gathering your insights to come up with, how do you want to solve the challenge through ideation and then prototyping. Iteration is where you are constantly obtaining feedback and tweaking or recreating your prototype until it gets to a solution. And then from there, you want to really kind of look at this as an experiment. You might have already implemented your solution, but you may want to tweak it, enhance it. You may have issues and have to throw it away and start all over, and that's okay. We like to fail in design thinking because that means we're learning and we're growing and we're going to make something even better the next time. So today we're talking about the people experience in the hiring process. So when you think about people in the hiring process, generally we focus on the candidate and the candidate experience. Is that the only audience we should be considering? No. We need to look at the full picture. That includes HR and recruiting. You know, this is the group of people who are, you know, kind of selling the company and the role. They're the ones finding the candidates and bringing them to, you know, the company to consider for positions. So you want them to be engaging. You want them to understand the business, and you definitely want them to be happy with their job. You really want someone who's disgruntled looking for your candidates, your new employees? Absolutely not. Then there's the hiring manager, which is one of the clients for the HR recruiting side of the business. And with the hiring manager, you have to think about, you know, ensuring that they're trained to find the right talent for their team, as well as know how the process is going. You want to ensure you're communicating with them. You also want to understand that you understand what they're looking for, so that you're, you know, looking for the right candidates. So really understanding your hiring manager as a recruiter is extremely important. And then you have employees. Why employees, right? We're talking about hiring people into the business. So wouldn't we just be looking at candidates? Absolutely not. Employees are a part of this process. It could be that they're a part of the interview process. So they're doing a job shadow. They might be interviewing. They might be doing tours. You might be getting feedback from them. But at the same time, once you bring that new employee in and onboard them, they are a part of the business. They are part of that employee's day-to-day life. So it's really important to focus on them too, because they are going to be impacted just as much as maybe the hiring manager, customers for your business, as well as HR and recruiting. Today, we're going to really focus on these 4 groups of people: candidates, employees, HR recruiting, and hiring managers. So in order to understand your audience, so we're looking at those 4 audiences through the hiring process, empathy is needed. Empathy should be used throughout the design thinking process. I'm sure that you use empathy when you're creating candidate personas, to recruitment marketing, to talent strategy. It's all about putting yourself in your audience's shoes and understanding how they feel or think, which is so important when we're recruiting new hires into our business. The Webster Dictionary's definition of empathy is the action of understanding, being aware of, being sensitive to, and vicariously experiencing the feelings, thoughts, and experience of another, of either the past or present, without having the feelings, thoughts, and experiencing fully communicated in an objective, explicit manner. Empathy is a word you've probably heard recently, especially if you watched Michelle Obama's speech at the DNC. I really liked her definition: the ability to walk in someone's shoes and recognize that someone else's experience has value. In recruiting, we can forget about the candidates or the hiring managers or the employees and how they feel during the selection process. And that can lead to those groups of people feeling that they're not valued. And that's why it's so important to utilize empathy throughout the process of understanding your audience within the hiring process. And within the IDEO process, there's a step just 100% dedicated to this, which is the immersion empathy activities. It's time for where you put yourself into the audience shoes, and there are 4 different ways to do this. The first one is change your perspective. What are some ways you can change your perspective to better relate to someone who has a different perspective? So if we just look at the candidate side, an example could be to understand how a candidate goes to a site, a career site to apply. You can actually go to one of your competitors' career sites and apply yourself. The second one is limit yourself. How can you imagine having limited experience, much like your audience? What happens when you take the ability away from yourself? My favorite idea of doing this is, do you know how it feels to be ghosted? So a lot of people may say, oh, absolutely, candidates have ghosted me just as much as maybe we have ghost them. But if that's something you haven't experienced before, one thing you can do is ask a manager or coworker to randomly select maybe an email, a voicemail, or an IM and just not answer it. And then after you kind of sit with that, you can kind of think about how did that feel when you were ghosted yourself. The third one is do it yourself. How can you personally experience what your audience will experience? Have you ever tried it yourself? What does it feel like? Interested in how a candidate completes your assessment? An example could be that you or someone on your team complete the assessment, document how it went for you, feelings, insights, to kind of really understand how a candidate deals with going through the assessment as part of the selection process. And the last one is engage in analogous experience. This is going through a similar experience, maybe in another industry that you can learn from. The one I use a lot is the chatbot experience. So if you're trying to understand how you can make the chatbot experience in your hiring process a better experience for your candidates, you might want to go check maybe retail or banking or another industry that also uses a chatbot. All right, now that you have a good understanding of the 4 different ways to immerse in empathy, I want you to brainstorm on different ways you can use this to help with your people experience in the hiring process. I'm going to give you 2 minutes per activity, and you'll want to list out as many ways you can use it to get to know the audience better. Each one will focus on one specific area or audience that we discussed. So let's get going. You'll want to have pen and paper Post-its for this, because you want to be jotting down your ideas. The first one is to change your perspective. What are some ways you can change your perspective to better relate to what a recruiter or an HR person goes through in the hiring process? So recruiter, HR, how can you better understand their perspective? So I'm going to go ahead and give you 2 minutes, and I'll let you know when time's kind of finishing up. So on your mark, get set, go. You're 30 seconds in. You're halfway through, 1 minute left. 30 seconds left. I'm sure you can think of one or two more ideas. Ten seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so really quickly, if you can go ahead and count how many ideas you thought of within those 2 minutes. And we're actually going to go on to the next activity. So the second one is to limit yourself. How can you imagine having limited experiences, much like your employees during the hiring process? So you might want to think about how are you utilizing employees during the hiring process, and how can some of what they're doing may be limited. So you have 2 minutes again. So are you mark, get set, go. Thirty seconds in. 5, 4, 3, 2. Oops, sorry. That's a minute in. My bad. I got so excited. Yeah, 45 seconds left. I'm sure you can think of one or two more ideas. Fifteen seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, definitely done now. So go ahead and write down your number of ideas that you got off of those 2 minutes of brainstorming on Limit Yourself. Now let's move on to the third activity. So the third one is do it yourself. How can you personally experience what your hiring manager will experience during the hiring process? Or it could be just another hiring manager if you're a hiring manager. So how can you do something that will help you understand a hiring manager's perspective? You got 2 minutes, and hopefully I'll get my timer right this time. So on your mark, get set, go. Thirty seconds in. All right, 1 minute left. You're halfway through. 30 seconds left. Ten seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, so go ahead and look down at your ideas and count how many ideas you got that time. And our last one is engage in analogous experience. So it's similar experiences in other industries that you can learn from to understand. And we're going to do candidate experience this time. So you're going to have 2 minutes to write down as many ideas as you can. So on your mark, get set, go. "30 seconds in. "1 minute left. "30 seconds. 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, so go ahead and count how many ideas you got from that short brainstorm session. All right, so we'd love to know what ideas you have, so feel free to put them in the comment section. If you're watching this recorded, definitely feel free to comment on the YouTube link. I'm sure we all would love to learn from each other and get ideas from each other. So here are a few that I came up with when I did this brainstorming activity. So for the HR recruiter change your perspective, I was thinking about how could a hiring manager understand the perspective of a recruiter. And I thought that they could, write a job posting of a department or a position they don't know anything about. That could even be being a part of the intake conversation to see how they would be able to write a job posting. To conduct a phone screen of a candidate that's not theirs. So for, again, another department. And also decline a candidate, have to, deal with declining a candidate over the phone. The second one with employees, which was the limit yourself, I really thought about, okay, how do we limit employees during the interview? And most of the time is we limit them with not giving them any preparation or have limited knowledge. So the ones I thought about were, having no preparation to do an interview or job chat, throwing it on their calendar last minute and then expecting to go and do it. That could also be limiting their knowledge of the candidate So doing a job shadow, do you give them a resume or not? And if you don't, having to do a job shadow with someone who you have no clue who they are beforehand. So I thought those could be some good ideas of understanding how an employee feels during those situations. And then limited knowledge of the role. Being a part of an interview or a job shadow or a tour and really not knowing a lot about the role that this person's interviewing with, that could also be something that an employee may lack, is the knowledge. So understanding how do they cope with that. With do it yourself, focusing on the hiring manager, some really, I just thought about some very simple ones that maybe an employee or candidate or a recruiter may not experience. So conduct an interview, being the person that interviews the candidate, and then completing the evaluation. How are they, how would you complete the evaluation? What are the hurdles and the insights that you get from that? And then also reviewing resumes, going to a different department or maybe an area that you don't recruit for and be given 10 resumes and say, which ones would you pick? That way you can kind of see how a hiring manager feels during those pieces of the process. And the last one was candidate analogous experience. I definitely went ahead and did the retail chatbot because I think that's a great one to learn from. The other piece I thought about was the candidate experience, looking at it through the scope of how a scout or a recruiter recruits a professional athlete. So what are the steps they do to keep that athlete interested in joining their team versus another? I felt like we could probably learn a lot from them. And the last one is a focus group. So a lot of marketing companies have focus groups that they might pay or provide something to get feedback from them. How do they get them to show up to the focus group interview? That could really maybe help us with looking at our no-show situations that we get sometimes with our interviews. So as you can see, these were just kind of 3 ideas for each one. If you put 3 other people in the situation, you're getting 9 additional more ideas potentially to really understand your audience. So this is a great way to build team morale. It's a great way to learn about your audience, and it could really, benefit you in the long run. But the question is, the ideas you have, are you able to do any of these today, this week, or this month? You can brainstorm all you want, but if you don't actually try it out and write a job posting or do a job shadow without a resume, or complete an evaluation or learn about a retail chatbot, if you don't take the time, you're not going to learn your audience. Just doing this brainstorm is not enough. You actually have to immerse yourself and actually do the activities now. All right, so in summary, design thinking can help you with finding creative, out-of-the-box, and innovative solutions. Empathy is key to understanding your audience and ensuring your process works for them. And you can utilize these different ways to immerse in empathy to come up with ideas to learn about your audience. Here are a few resources for you to use. The first group is about design thinking. Like I said, I utilize IDOU for my certification. They have some amazing online training. IDOU was created by IDEO, which is a design firm. So they have a lot of great case studies and a lot of insights on what they've been doing with their clients. And then the D School at Stanford is an amazing design thinking education platform as well. The second resource is an empathy quiz. I definitely suggest you going to this Berkeley quiz to see how you do in empathy. It will also provide you with different ways to help you immerse in empathy as well. 2 ideas that they give you, which I love, is reading books, being able to immerse yourself into someone else's story. and then also going to the movies, because again, it's a great way to immerse into someone else's situation. And the last is information that I have through my business, so design thinking and talent acquisition information. My book, Hire by Design, is available on Amazon.com. You can also go to hirebydesignbook.com, and there are templates that you can utilize within design thinking as well as talent acquisition. And then my company's website is Let's Cincy, and I have blog information there, as well as events that we have throughout the year. So definitely check out these resources, great resources to use. But thank you so much for joining me today. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. Here's my contact information. Have a wonderful rest of your week and happy recruiting. Have a great day. Thanks. Bye.